Rotarians. Wow, welcome. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Des Moines, the March 27th meeting of the Rotary Club of Des Moines. I'm Kevin Consiglio, president. And looking out in this full room is fantastic. Over 100 Rotarians and guests here today. Really happy about that, and I was equally happy last week. We had our speed networking meeting, and if you didn't attend, we had people gone with spring break and so forth. We had over 50 members there, and got really good reviews, so we're going to do that again. So those that missed out, hopefully we'll do that again next year. I'd like to thank now our volunteers for the day. Melissa Merrifield was our greeter, and we have Jackie Norris signed up as our moment of inspiration. So I'd like to recognize those Rotarians that are helping out today. And now I'd like Jackie to come to the podium and share her words. We'll also ask her to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, the four-way test, and then we'll have an opportunity to greet our Rotarians and all of our guests here today. So Jackie.
Rotary. Hello. There we go. In a world that feels increasingly fractured and complex, it can be tempting to think that the loudest voice wins, or that strength is only found in power. But I've been thinking a lot lately about the kind of strength, the kind that sits at the table, listens fully, and speaks with care. As a mother of two sons who will become military officers next year, I know they carry an incredible responsibility. I hope that even as they train to lead with strength for wartime, they will also lead with wisdom. That they will recognize that the hardest work often happens not on the battlefield, but in the quiet persistence of diplomacy. There's a quote I found often attributed to former Secretary of State Dean Acheson. The best diplomacy is like jazz, responsive, complex, improvisational, but always rooted in deep listening. Let's all strive to be better listeners, to approach disagreement with curiosity, and to remember that peace in our homes, our communities, and our world is built more than anything on the courage to connect. May we each be diplomats in our own spheres, bringing light to complexity and understanding to division. Before we rise and say the pledge, please take a moment of reflection to ask yourself how you can be a diplomat in your own sphere this week. And with that, please rise to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now the four-way test.
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
And you can greet your fellow Rotarians and guests.
Lynette, I've got a quick story to tell you real quick. I've never spelled Rasmussen incorrectly ever since you told me. And that was years ago.
All right, thank you, everybody. Next, take your seat, please. We normally, at this point, introduce each of our guests, but we have such a group today, over 20, I think. So, if you're a guest of the club, a non-member visiting, could you all please stand, and so the rest of us can recognize you and welcome you? Thank you for joining us. There's a birthday in our club today, Kimberly Strope August, so if you know Kimberly, please reach out to her. We also had a Where in the World is Club number 27 today. For our guests, there's over 35,000 Rotary clubs around the world, and we were one of the first, number 27. So we have this segment when people go to interesting places. And Joe Sweeney, who's here today, hey Joe, took us to the Pentagon to a cool experience. He has a good friend, David Liu, who was promoted Rear Admiral of the U.S. Navy, so please wish him our congratulations. And that really leads right into our agenda for the day perfectly, so I appreciate that. We are giving Doug and Skeet the day off today. For those of you who are wondering why, that's our little segment where we have a little fun called Rotarians on the Floor Laughing. So we're just having a little fun back with them. But I am going to make a short Did you know segment related to the topic for today. And it's the presence of Iowans in the federal government. And we all know the history of President Hoover, and he was past Commerce Secretary. We have the Vice President, Henry Wallace, in the 1940s, who was both Commerce and Ag Secretary, and a long list of Ag Secretaries, actually. We know Governor Vilsack, 12 of the last 16 years as the Ag Secretary. So a lot of presence there. But did you know the name James Tama Jim Wilson? Does anybody know that story? Raise your hand. You know? No? A few of you know? Okay, so here's for everybody. So I didn't know about this. He was Tama Jim. He was the nickname that from Tama County, Iowa. Tama County, Iowa. He is the longest-serving cabinet member in U.S. history. He was 16 straight years of the Ag Secretary, from President McKinley to Theodore Roosevelt to Taft. So there you go. Learned something. And now to our topic, which is the State Department and Foreign Service. Over the last 35 years, we've had a significant presence in the Foreign Service and the State Department. Ambassador Kenneth Quinn, honorary member of our club, spent a long career in Foreign Service, was the ambassador to Cambodia and Deputy Assistant Secretary of State. From Cedar Rapids, Chuck Larson was the ambassador to Latvia. And we are proud of another honorary member, Governor Branstad, who is here with us today, the ambassador to China. So Governor, we're really glad to have you here today. And we are proud of another honorary member, another ambassador, Mary Kramer, who was the ambassador to Barbados and Eastern Caribbean. And I'd like you to welcome Ambassador Kramer to the podium, who will introduce our keynote speaker today.
Well, hello, Rotarians. I feel like I'm back home again. It was so much fun. Everybody, well, you practiced great hospitality. Let me compliment you on that first. And it is a great honor for me today. Ambassador Crocker is renowned in the State Department. And even though I only spent a short time there, I knew of him and his work and his willingness to serve in difficult places where we need him and other servants like him. He is just, well, I was very proud. I can say I had lunch with Ambassador Crocker.
I can say I had lunch with Ambassador Kramer.
And we're thankful to the Greater Des Moines Committee on Foreign Relations for arranging Ambassador Crocker's visit to Des Moines. He's been here several days, and as a supporter of Iowa Public Radio, I was glad to hear he visited with Iowans on River to River today. Ambassador Crocker's 37-year career in the U.S. Foreign Service spanned some of the most volatile and critical regions of the world, including Afghanistan, Iraq, Pakistan, and Lebanon. Remember, I said he was willing to accept posts that required huge diplomatic skills and were dangerous. We have to be thankful for our public servants that do that. In recognition of his service, he was awarded the Medal of Freedom in 2009, our nation's highest civilian honor. He retired from the Foreign Service as a career ambassador, the highest rank within the U.S. Department of State. Throughout his tenure, he received multiple prestigious awards. I think we should have a movie of those, Ambassador Crocker. Yeah. But that included the Department of Defense Award for Distinguished Civilian Service, as well as the CIA Director's Award. Well, those paragraphs describe the bulk of his work. It doesn't describe the kind of integrity and courage and knowledge development and the kindness he shows toward other Foreign Service officers that need his wisdom. He is an extraordinary representative of the United States of America. His work and conduct repeatedly earned him the respect of leaders in his host countries. The United States is much the better for it in ways that very few of us really know. He is a genuine hero, and I would ask that you stand now to welcome Ambassador Crocker.
Ambassador Kramer, thank you for that generous introduction. Mr. President, thank you very much for having me for your Rotary meeting today. I'm a big fan of Rotary International. I served as ambassador to both Pakistan and Afghanistan and saw up close and personal some of the cutting-edge work that Rotary International has done in the effort to finally eradicate polio around the world. And this is an expensive, it is a difficult, it is a dangerous process. Healthcare workers supported by Rotary International have been killed in the northwest frontier areas of Pakistan, doing their best to eradicate this awful disease. So it's a real privilege to be among you today and to thank you for your good work here at home and abroad. My time is limited, and I will spend it talking about diplomacy, foreign service, and something that if Iowa didn't invent it, Iowa raised it to an art form, and that's citizen diplomacy. And of course, we have two wonderfully accomplished practitioners here of citizen diplomacy and its intersection with professional diplomacy, with Ambassador Governor Branstad and Ambassador Kramer. I'm honored to be in your presence. Thank you. The Foreign Service of the United States is small. There are about 8,300 generalist Foreign Service officers, what we commonly call diplomats. That is the rough number, a few hundred more than you find on a carrier strike force of the U.S. Navy. The U.S. Navy has 11 carrier strike forces. We are intensely expeditionary. Any given day, 75 to 80% of us are deployed abroad. That's why it's called the Foreign Service. We have a rank structure that is exactly similar to the officer rank structure of the U.S. military, from second lieutenant equivalent to 4-star general equivalent. We swear the same oath as our sisters and brothers in uniform to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And that does not mean only in the nice places of the world, not just in London, Paris, or Tokyo, but also in Baghdad, Kabul, or Beirut. All of us are professionally fluent in at least one language. It stands to reason when you think about it that if you're going to be engaged in diplomacy abroad on behalf of your country, it kind of helps to speak the language of the country you are assigned to. We are, like our military colleagues, avowedly nonpartisan. I served 6 times as ambassador, 3 times for Republican administrations, and 3 times for Democratic administrations. And a corollary to that is the Foreign Service does not make policy. It advises on policy, and it implements policy. In the American system, policy is formulated at one end of Pennsylvania Avenue in the White House, and it's resourced at the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue in the United States Congress, in both cases by elected officials. Nobody elected the Foreign Service. We are appointed, and we serve those that the people choose to elect, full stop. It doesn't matter what administration or which policies. We serve the President of the United States in support of the Constitution of the United States, period. It is an inherently dangerous profession. In those 6 ambassadorial assignments I had, 3 of my predecessors as American ambassador were assassinated at post in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, and in Lebanon. I have lost Foreign Service officers under my authority in 3 of the countries where I was ambassador. In Pakistan, in Iraq, and in Afghanistan. In our traditions, when you have an officer killed at post, the ambassador has the personal responsibility of calling the next of kin. And we do that any time of day or night as soon as we've confirmed the death, so the news doesn't get ahead of us. And I can tell you it is a painful experience to call a woman who went to bed a wife and inform her at 3 in the morning her time that she's now a widow. So I didn't take that responsibility lightly, but we cannot have a culture in which there is 0 risk. The world doesn't run that way. We have to manage risk, and that's what the Foreign Service does. What do we do? Well, a primary function of the Foreign Service is we look after our own American citizens in the countries to which we're assigned. We're your 9/11. If something happens, call the embassy. We will do everything we can to get you out of trouble, get you out of jail, get you out of the country. And And sometimes we resort to interesting means to do that. There is a Consular Affairs Manual that is written, and there is a Consular Affairs Manual that is a code of conduct, which is you do everything you possibly can for your fellow citizens. I'll come back to that. We negotiate, clearly. And negotiation isn't always about talking nice. I have negotiated with our adversaries, including Iran and various forms of militias. That negotiation to be successful, like diplomacy in general, requires a capacity to listen. It also requires a key quality which I would label empathy. Empathy is not to be confused with sympathy. You need to understand your adversary at least as well as you understand your friends. You need to know what their background is, what their culture is, what their version of history is. Not just what the history is, but what is their understanding of that history? How do they interpret it? How do they see you? How are they likely to react to what you say? All of that understanding is built of years of study and experience. And I found the most important academic pursuit that I had was that guided my own career was history. History is not greatly beloved of most Americans. The phrase "that's history" is pejorative. You know, we didn't build our great country by looking backwards. Don't tell me about yesterday; it's about today and tomorrow. But let me tell you, in the broad world, yesterday informs today, and it conditions tomorrow. You better know it, and you better know it in the terms of the people you're dealing with. We don't negotiate as a pure art form. We do it on behalf of other agencies in the national interest. We're particularly close to the United States military through the Department of Defense. I was Deputy Assistant Secretary of State immediately after 9/11, and for the ensuing number of weeks, my staff and I were fully concentrated on getting overflight clearances, landing clearances, refueling clearances, basing rights, everything we needed to project force into Afghanistan, which if you looked at a map lately is not the easiest place to get to. So it is not the military that negotiates those transit, overflight, refueling, and basing rights. It's the Foreign Service through our embassies. I had direct negotiations with the Iranians at the time to ensure that should we lose an aircraft and a pilot that came down in Iranian territory, that they would facilitate and allow us to conduct a search and rescue operation. That's all done by the Foreign Service. So we also support trade abroad. John Norris, of course, I've learned, served as a minister counselor in Rome for, was it FODEC?
Foul, yeah.
FOW. Our agricultural exports, which are a mainstay of this economy, certainly in this state, are something that I furthered during my time as ambassador, for example, to Iraq, to ensure that when they were buying wheat, they bought it from the U.S. So trade promotion is an immense part of it as well. We deal in a gray world. There are a few blacks and whites. There are lots of shades of gray. What your Foreign Service is trained to do in terms of the languages we have, the cultural experiences we have, the history we've studied and lived, is to learn how to navigate those grays in ways that benefit the U.S. national interest and most importantly provide for America's national security. Now I would just segue into another example of diplomacy, and that's citizen diplomacy. And again, Iowa, I think, leads the nation in citizen diplomacy, going back to the invitation to Khrushchev in the 1950s. proffered not by the Department of State, which I think was annoyed by it, but by the Des Moines Register. But it was the first step in some very, very critical steps that Iowa has led in citizen diplomacy and outreach. And again, Ambassadors Branstad and Kramer personify this, and Ambassador Branstad, or is it Governor Branstad?
Either one.
Personifies this, being a key host of Xi Jinping in 1985, and of course, before Xi was Xi's father in 1980, that Ambassador Quinn was involved in, that he was involved in. And I was pleased to read that Iowa's role and the role of Iowans, led by Governor Branstad, in our relationship with China was recognized by Xi Jinping when he spoke in San Francisco in November of 2023. He put an interesting proposition to his audience. Is the United States going to be a partner with China, or is it going to be an adversary? The answer, I think, and I obviously defer to Ambassador Branstad on this, is both. It is a great power. It has global interests, as do we. Sometimes they will conflict. Sometimes they will coincide. The trick is knowing when to stand against a powerful country and when to cooperate. That's the challenge of diplomacy. One area where I think there is a particular scope for cooperation is in Africa. And here I'm thinking of the World Food Prize, the Nobel Prize for Agriculture, as it's styled, and rightly so. One of its focuses has been on how do you feed a growing population worldwide, but particularly in Africa, under conditions of marked poverty and disease. Well, China has an extensive assistance program in Africa, and so do we, or did we, until USAID was dismantled. I'm not sure where that stands now. But we have both been very active historically in Africa. And again, it is development not for the sake of development or solely for the good of the people that we are benefiting. It is ultimately for the sake of world peace and American national security. Pandemics don't know borders. Famines can be horrifically destabilizing as well as devastating to those experiencing them. We have a direct national security interest. So Ambassador Quinn, another professional and a citizen diplomat, who of course brought World Food Prize to international stature that his successors have built on, developed the notion that we should have a serious conversation with China on Africa and how we can coordinate and cooperate for more effective delivery of food supplies and the necessary infrastructure. It was Norman Borlaug, a great transplanted Iowan. I was at Texas A&M for some years. We claim him there too. But there is enough of Norman Borlaug to go around. To challenge our Chinese partners for a true partnership on behalf of Africa, on behalf of continental stability in Africa, to coordinate our development efforts so that we are not competing, but we are combining for a greater good. It is a notion that, again, I saw developed in the Des Moines Register by Ken Quinn, and Ambassador Branstad, your presence here and your deep knowledge of China and the Chinese leads me to just throw that out there as an idea worth exploring. All of this, of course, presupposes a relatively stable international order, which is what the United States produced following World War II. We designed it. The United Nations was created at the San Francisco Conference in 1943. The Bretton Woods Agreement, that's Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, not Bretton Woods, France, moved the world from the gold standard to the dollar standard. And NATO was created in the years immediately after World War II. And it was an order that we not only designed, but that we led for roughly 8 decades. And it was not a perfect world at perfect peace during those 8 decades, but it was a world that avoided major conflagration during the tensions with the Soviet Union and after the Soviet Union's collapse. You compare that to the 20 years that separated World War I and World War II, and the United States was not on the world stage. It's a pretty powerful argument for continued U.S. global leadership. And I'm concerned that we may be at a hinge of history right now, where the American people, not just the administration, are rethinking, does the U.S. really want to lead in this world? It takes money, it takes time, it takes effort. Maybe we should just leave it to others to run the world by themselves and look to our core interests here at home. I would just suggest to you that is a very dangerous proposition. If you don't have a US-led world order, well, there aren't too many other models out there. You default to a balance of power system, spheres of influence, where countries with dominant power and interest in one realm exercise it there, and these spheres brush up against each other, sometimes in very destabilizing ways. It was a balance of power system that produced 2 world wars and a Holocaust. It has been U.S. global leadership for the last 80 years that has kept the world safe of catastrophes of that magnitude. And bear in mind that World War II and the Holocaust are still in living memory. Never again? History doesn't suggest that the world works that way. It is a messy, dangerous place left to its own devices. We have challenged the world with a model of U.S. leadership. We are the shining city on the hill, as President Reagan put it. The only element that can remove the U.S. from global leadership is not China, it's not Russia, it's not China and Russia combined. It is the United States of America and the American people themselves. If we decide we don't want to do it, then we won't do it, and we will see what the consequences are. I would not suggest they will be pretty. And finally, I would just say again that being here at this Rotary Club in particular, the 27th in the nation, with a long and distinguished history, you have lived the 4-way test. Boy, I wish every American would embrace that test. Not just say the words, but take it to heart. We all salute the same flag. We all say the same pledge. We need to remember we are Americans. That is what binds us. That is what makes this country great. That political differences are an inherent part of our fabric. Political differences are good. But the level of polarization we've experienced now, the level of extremism on both the left and the right, there's plenty of blame for the dialogue of the deaf that we're now experiencing to go around. I would just hope that Americans everywhere would follow the example of Rotary, this Rotary in particular, and embrace that 4-way pledge. Happy to take your questions in our remaining time.
Did you ever cross paths with Ralph Bunch? And what would
Ralph Bunch was someone I never had the pleasure of knowing. He was before my time, effectively, but his reputation and his achievements linger on to this day. I think, particularly in his dealings with the Soviet Union, showing a respect for the Soviet Union as a world power with a long and rich history and a history of real suffering. The number of Russians killed from the Soviet republics and Russia killed during World War I and World War II is astronomical, 20 million or so. He knew that, he respected it, but he also was a quintessential American who never lost sight of what America's interests were, and was able to face down the Soviets on key issues relating to nuclear arms, and set the pattern for a robust position of the United States to counter Soviet influence while keeping both nations away from the nuclear Armageddon. And I'm glad you asked the question. He was a great statesman, a great American. I wish he were here today. Governor.
Ambassador, first of all, thank you for your distinguished service in some very challenging and difficult locations. I want you to know that the World Food Prize is very much working to try to get more involvement in Africa. And we have a lot of African leaders that come to the World Food Prize in October each year. I want to ask you probably the most difficult diplomatic question, and that is, do you see the likelihood of a diplomatic solution to the war that's going on in between Russia and Ukraine?
Well, that is a tough question. I think the question was, do I see the likelihood of a diplomatic solution to the war between Russia and Ukraine? And I think I would pose that question to the most distinguished diplomat in the room, who is the person who asked it.
I wish I knew the answer.
That said, all wars end. It was the German general and philosopher von Clausewitz who said that war is politics carried on by other means, that wars emerge out of politics and eventually return to politics. The question in Ukraine is when and under what circumstances. I saw our engagement, and there was an example of U.S. global leadership again, rallying all of NATO in support of Ukraine and many other key countries around the world, including Japan, to support Ukraine without having to put foreign boots on the ground. Frankly, as a non-Europeanist, I never saw the ultimate goal as the retaking of all of Ukrainian territory occupied by Russia since 2014. The Crimean Peninsula, of course, was taken in 2014, not in 2022. And the Donbass, the area of eastern Ukraine, is currently occupied by Russia, has been occupied in part since also 2014. I did not see it as military realistic or achievable for Ukraine to expect to get all of its territory back. What I did think the point of our robust support for Ukraine was to ensure that when the time came for negotiations, that Russia would have dropped any notion that the application of military force on the European Eurasian landmass was in Russia's interest. And I'm not sure we've reached that point. I am concerned, again, without being an expert, that Putin may have concluded that his gambit worked. That he ran into much tougher going than he expected, has had horrific losses, But his calculation at this point may be that he can show to his people and to the rest of the world that forceful aggression against an occupation of another country succeeds. So I hope very much as we now move into a phase aimed at ending the war, we do so on terms that would dissuade Russia from ever again trying such an adventure elsewhere. And the closer you are to Russia in Eastern Europe, the more acute that fear becomes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
What message are allies and our adversaries taking from our seeming withdrawal from the world stage through cancellation of the USAID, Voice of America, threatening NATO protection?
Yeah, again, on the question was, what message do our allies and our adversaries take from the signs of an apparent U.S. withdrawal from the world through the closure effectively of USAID, Voice of America, and other agencies? I think the entire world is recalculating, both allies and adversaries. Our adversaries are wondering what opportunities may now present themselves to them if the United States is not going to lead a global response. Our allies are wondering where their security lies if it doesn't lie with alliance with the United States. A main element of U.S. power over the last 8 decades, since World War II, has been not our own national strength, as powerful as that is. It's been the strength of our alliances. NATO has withstood the test of time, as we've seen now in Ukraine, and it's been through some powerful tests. The collapse of the Soviet Union was thought at one point to be the end of NATO. Our catastrophic withdrawal from Afghanistan severely weakened NATO solidarity in 2021. The cause of Ukraine has rallied it again in support. All of that with U.S. leadership. If that leadership goes away, the alliances go away. We are now talking about giving up the military leadership of NATO. The Supreme Allied Commander in Europe may not be an American next time, not because somebody eased us out, but because we decided we didn't want it anymore. So I worry that our adversaries will try to take advantage of that, and I worry that our allies may take actions that are not in the greater good. History shows us, the history of the first half of the 20th century shows us that Europe can be a very dark and dangerous place. Again, 2 world wars and the Holocaust emerged from Europe. That does not suggest to me that a Europe without U.S. leadership, even a Western European-centric division of Europe, is necessarily going to gravitate towards peace, democracy, and light. So I just worry that for the first time in over 80 years, go back to the beginning of World War I, we may be looking at a new world order that we will not lead and we will not shape. It will somehow shape itself. And the history of the world suggests that shaping may turn into something we deeply regret. Yes, sir.
The book, The Ambassadors, it portrayed you and some of your colleagues as voices of reason swimming upstream in a world that mostly cares about winning. And I'm wondering how you got people who often may not really, who often disliked each other, to sit down at a table and compromise.
Well, the question was that there was a book called The Ambassadors, written about me and several of my colleagues that seemed to have spent a lot of time suggesting reason to people who may not be showing any signs of having any. That's inside the Beltway. Outside the Beltway, of course. It's even worse. So how do you talk reason to people who may have other things in mind? Well, again, it's all about understanding who you're talking to, what motivates them, what's their background, what's their experience. In Iraq, I became ambassador in early 2007. That was an extremely bad time. The civil war was in full cry. Sunni and Shia Arabs were murdering each other in incredible numbers. And the first thing that was necessary was for me to understand why. And the Iraqi population has three main elements. Two are sectarian, Shia and Sunni Arabs, and then there are the Kurds in the north, different ethnicity, predominantly Sunni, but identifying by their ethnic origins, not their sectarian affiliation. So I had to understand what drove each community. And what I determined was that it was fear. The Shia were afraid of the past, afraid of a return of a regime like Saddam Hussein's, dominated by Sunnis who behaved in a totally sectarian manner, aimed at oppressing, if not murdering outright, large numbers of the Shia population. The Sunnis were afraid of the future, afraid of life in an Iraq in which they no longer called the shots, in which they no longer made the decisions, in which an embittered and hostile majority was now controlling power. And the Kurds were afraid of both the past and the future. Afraid of the past where they had suffered horrifically under Saddam's rule. He used poison gas against his Kurdish population, among other things. And afraid of a future, that they would once again be the victims of a majoritarian, hostile set of communities around them, be it Iran, Turkey, or Iraq itself. So that was the common denominator. So my challenge as a third party with influence, because we had over 100,000 troops on the ground, that gives you a lot of influence, was to address those fears, to try to find small arrangements they could make with each other. And what I found in the zero-sum thinking of the time, and again, this worries me about the state of our own society, that there can be no compromise, because a compromise is a concession is defeat, and defeat is death. Well, that was the mentality. I wasn't going to change that overnight, but what I could do is put the United States in the middle. You won't give X to this group, but you give X to me, and I'll put it in my pocket, and tell me what you want in return, and I'll see if I can get that given to me. And if I have something in both pockets, maybe we can do a deal. One early deal we did that paved the way to an ending of sectarian violence was an arrangement whereby the Shia-led government in Baghdad produced a $250 million budget supplemental for the almost exclusively Sunni province of Anbar, and sent representatives to sign the agreement. We were right in the middle of that. It would not have happened without us. So it is finding common ground that two warring parties may not be able to find on their own, and that requires, again, listening, empathy, language skills, area knowledge to do it right.
Last question. One more question.
One more question.
Going back, you said something a moment ago that triggered a thought here relating to Europe. And you even used a quote from President Reagan in particular. And yet the diplomatic corps that was around him at that point in time, it was advising him not to use the words that ultimately led to the coming down of the Berlin Wall, which actually led to the changes that have come since then with the fall of the Soviet Union. How do you score that with the leadership that the political leadership said one thing that was actually advised not to say by the diplomatic folks? How do you score those things together?
It's a great question to conclude on, because it goes back to the essence of what I was saying. I don't know the particulars of what advice he was getting from whom, but the key word there is advice. His political advisors, his appointed political advisors, are there to give advice. He is the elected President of the United States. He has stood the test of the people. He has the authority and the responsibility to make the decision. And his decision was to use the words he used. Now, if he had advice to the contrary, that is the responsibility of advisors, to give their best advice. It is not their authority or their responsibility to insist that he take it.
Ambassador Crocker, on behalf of the 170 members of the Rotary Club of Des Moines, we sincerely thank you for taking your time today, your incredible insights, experiences, and sharing with us today, and also your distinguished foreign service career that really shaped history, and your commitment to service to our country and your global impact to make the world a better place truly embodies the values that we share as Rotarians. So from all of us, thank you for your service. Okay, upcoming meetings. More great meetings at the Rotary Club of Des Moines. Next week we have the President of Simpson College, Jay Byers. And then the next 2 weeks we have always heartwarming programs, the local scholarships, where we have 6 scholarships to the high school seniors in the Des Moines Public Schools, and then we have Educator of the Year awards on April 17th. So April is another big month of opportunities in our club. On April 29th, we have the 9 a.m. Fuel Coffee meeting, where we're featuring Helen Miller, who will talk to us about her fascinating life and experiences, and who just wrote a book titled I Don't Swim. So I'm sure we'll hear about that and encourage you all to attend. Also, we'll hear from Rich Leopold, our Community Service Committee Chair, about an Earth Day, for donating your time to an Earth Day opportunity on April 22nd. And having a little fun, the Wheels Fellowship, led by Randy Worth, has an opportunity April 26th to try out the Iowa Motor Truck Semi-Driving Simulator and tour a train locomotive supplied by the Iowa Interstate Railroad. So a fun day for the whole family to come on April 26th. So again, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you to our guests. Ambassador, thank you. Ambassadors, thank you for coming. To our members, I think you'll see the opportunity to support our 3 pillars. Our 3 pillars, again, are building relationships, impacting positively our community, and building our membership. So please look at these opportunities that I just laid out as opportunities to help out and join in. And tonight, speaking about opportunities to build relationships, President-elect Tim Lilwitz and his wife EJ are hosting the spring party, as they're calling it, tonight. So I'll look forward to seeing you all there. Make it a great Rotarian week, everybody. We are adjourned.